These challenges, in our opinion, seem to have overwhelmed our security institutions.
The governors are supposed to be the state security officers of their state.
There is need for us to at least engage the traditional rulers.
We need to do something about our porous borders.
We have to own it from the unit level to the ward level to the local government to state.
Mr. President, the importance of today for us is for us to take action.
Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
With this new introduction, the chairman, the board is separated from the management of FIRS.
Senate recommends strategies to enhance revenue generation capacity for FIRS.
The German government are going to provide 85% of the monies that we need.
And Senate approves counterpart funding for the implementation of Nigeria-German agreement on improved power generation. Welcome to Inside the Senate. With the passage of the 2023 budget on Wednesday, the 28th of December 2022, the National Assembly proceeded on its Christmas and New Year break same day. President Buhari on Tuesday, the 3rd of January 2023, also signed the budget into law. While senators are on holiday, we shall continue the program with a review of some of the issues deliberated on before the break. This week, we have reports on the approval of the budget of the FIRS and the federal government's power company budget. We shall complete the program with a report of an event organized by the Nigerian Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies recently, which featured the leadership of the National Assembly. These reports, alongside others, form our package this week. Sit back as the program continues in a moment.
The Senate will send a message to the President
to reap opportunities from that agreement.
To raise a matter of urgent public importance. And we are aware that when this particular motion comes up
for a longer term development,
arise to second the motion.
those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Thanks for being with us. One of the subject matters considered before the Senate proceeded on its Christmas and New Year break was the report of the Committee on Finance on the 2023 budget of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS. A report on this matter is compiled and presented from our studio.
The bill seeks to support the implementation of the federal budget of fiscal
presenting an overview of the revenue-generating performance of the service in the year 2022. Chairman of the Committee on Finance, which worked on the budget, Senator Solomon Olamilekan, stated that out of its 10.43 trillion naira projected revenue target, the service is able to generate 7.5 trillion naira as at 31st of September 2022. Adding that this amount has already exceeded the total amount of 6.4 trillion naira collected in the whole of 2021. He gave the strategies deployed by the service which resulted in the massive increase in the 2022 revenue as leveraging on the Finance Act, appointment of more agencies for VAT collection, VAT automation, establishment of data manning portals, audit and investigation alongside linking of the FIRS database to those of relevant agencies like the Nigerian Customs Service, National Communications Commission, NCC, as well as Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC, as well as strengthening monitoring and evaluation framework of constituents, functions and staff of the service, amongst others. The committee also recommended an amendment to the FIRS Establishment Act to enhance corporate governance and administration of the service. This include change of name of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, to Nigerian Revenue Service, as well as reorganization of the service by separating its management from the board, with the board to be handed by a chairman and the management headed by a commissioner general.
Like what we currently have, we have the chairman board of internal revenue as the chairman of the board and also as the executive, as the MD of the FIRS. But with this new introduction, the chairman, the board is separated from the management of the of FIRS. So, and we have a separate chairman appointed to head the board, while the chairman now will be referred to as the Commissioner General in charge of the service. Recommendation.
As for the 2023 budget proposal, he gave the breakdown as follows. Total proposal 262.959 billion naira. Personnel cost 126.070 billion naira. Overhead cost 96.961 billion naira. Capital expenditure 40.828 billion naira. The chairman also gave justification for the amounts allocated to the various components of the 2023 budget of the service.
The personnel cost is based on staff strength on the payroll, including the social benefits such as NHIA, pension, contribution, etc., and anticipated performance bonus for the year. While there is an increase in the overhead projection, which can be attributed to the need for more robust operational service, which are critical in driving the achievement of the service core objective, e.g. electricity tariff, generator fuel cost, legal service that are due to tax dispute and tax automation project, and other critical ones that relate directly to tax collection and administration. The capital cost of estimate approved include the ongoing new project which are to be executed during the 2023 financial year, and this as a result of expected completion of project, payment of retention on completed project, and some new project for effective revenue service.
With no debate taken, the budget was considered clause by clause in the Committee of Supply and approved. The report of the Committee on Power on a total of 95.665 billion naira as 2022 budget for Federal Government of Nigeria Power Company was also presented for consideration before the Senate recessed for the end of the year 2022. Given the background of the budget, the Chairman Senate Committee on Power, Senator Gabriel Suswam, stated that the process commenced in the early days of this administration when President Muhammadu Buhari, during a visit to Germany, signed an agreement with the German government providing for the intervention of Siemens, a German-based energy technology company, in the transmission and distribution of power in Nigeria.
The implementation of that agreement led to an agreement through an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, that culminated in the power company acting as that special purpose vehicle for the implementation of the agreement between the German government and the Nigerian government to assist us in the transmission and distribution of power in the country. For the Germans to come in, proper arrangement needs to be done because Nigeria needs to also have counterpart funding of about 15%, and they needed to put on ground some activities for Siemens to come in. That is what has led to this budget.
One of the senators gave more clarification on the budget figures.
This amount of 95 billion 261,665,187 naira is counterpart funding. The main money is coming from Germany. I think this is just 15% of the total expenditure that is going to be incurred to improve the generation and distribution of power supply in Nigeria. Mr. President, we are all interested in seeing that the power supply in Nigeria has improved tremendously.
Even then, Senate President Ahmad Lawan raised a question on one of the contents in a page of the committee's recommendations.
The recommendation on page 3 of the report. The committee recommends that the FGM Power Company Limited's 2022 budget of 95 billion 261,665,187 naira be approved with minor adjustments by the committee to enhance the activities of the company. What is that? What is minor adjustments?
The German government are going to provide 85% of the monies that we need. This has already been approved. So for purpose of clarity, we have to capture that loan there to show that we're only paying 15% as against 85% of what the Germans are bringing. We did. So it's just to show that this is sponsored with the German loan. That is why it is there.
With this, the Senate dissolved into the Committee of the Whole, considered the report clause by clause, leading to its adoption and approval.
Those against saying the ayes have it.
That was a review of some financial bills passed by the Senate before the end of 2022. Let's now take a short break for the notebook segment. Please stay tuned.
The Constitution provides that representation in the Senate is by equality, meaning that each state of the Federation is entitled to 3 senators, which makes a total of 108 considering the 36 states. The FCT is allowed 1 senator, thereby making a total of 109 in the chamber. Representation in the House of Representatives is by population of each state, and that is why states like Lagos with a population of 11 million and Kano with a population of 16 million have the highest number of 24 members each, while states like Bayelsa and Nasarawa with population of 2.2 million and 2.5 million respectively have 5 members each. The lawmakers are allowed a term of 4 years and can serve for as long as they are returned by their electorates, unlike the executive who are allowed only 2 terms for the president and governors.
Welcome back. Still before the recess, the Senate also considered 2 bills for second reading, seeking the establishment of technology and education-related bills. One of them is the Federal University of Technology, Sabon Birni, Sokoto State, Establishment Bill 2022, sponsored by the Senate leader, Senator Ibrahim Gobir.
To encourage the advancement of learning and to hold out to all persons without distinction of race, creed, sex, or political conviction, the opportunity of acquiring a higher education in science and technology.
The bill was supported but with suggestions.
I am suggesting that once we talk about opening a University of Science and Technology and Innovation, we must be able to ensure that we have enough resources to also put the laboratory in place.
Education is almost seen as a right. And I think when we give education to our young ones, that is when we are securing the future of this country. And I believe that citing this Federal University of Technology in such a location will be beneficial to the immediate communities, to Sokoto State, to Northwest, and indeed the country at large.
With this, the bill scaled second reading and referred to the Committee on Tertiary Education and TED Fund to report back soonest. Also for third reading before the break was a health-related bill sponsored by Senator Chukwuka Utazi. It was the Federal Medical Center Ogukwa Nsukka, Enugu State, Establishment Bill 2022. The bill had scaled second reading and had been referred to the Senate Committee on Health. Having worked on the bill with the public hearing held, the committee chairman, Senator Yahya Oloriegbe, presented the report.
From presentations at the public hearing and memorandum submitted, the bill received overwhelming support for the establishment of a federal medical center in Ogukwa Nsukka to bring healthcare closer to the resident. It will, among other things, bridge the gap in living standard of health, tackled the problem of overcrowding witnessed in existing primary and secondary health services in the area, and create access to healthcare for the people of Ogukwa who are in dire need of adequate healthcare facilities.
With no comment made, the Senate dissolved into the Committee of the Whole, where the report was considered clause by clause, leading to the third reading of the bill and eventual passage.
Those against saying the ayes have it.
Welcome back. Senate President President Ahmad Lawan says the importance of the House of Representatives in the annals of the political and legal evaluation of Nigeria cannot be overemphasized. He stated this in a keynote address at the commencement of the second parliamentarian lecture series, which took place before the recess. Let's take the report on this event as compiled and presented from our studio.
The clerk to the National Assembly, the director names.
The second parliamentarian lecture series took place at the International Conference Center (ICC) and was organized by the Nigerian Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies (NILS) shortly before the Christmas and New Year break. Senate President Ahmad Lawan gave the keynote address.
We all know that the House is normally the radical arm of the National Assembly. It's the same here, it's the same in the US, and it's everywhere. Thank God I served in the House for 8 years, between 1999 and 2007. And I know the transformation and changes I've gone through. When I was in the House, of course, I was thinking differently from what I do today. And that is because the House has its own orientation, its own sensibilities, its own sentiments. And we like that because that brings some balance, that at least when you have legislations, the hot and the cold would produce something that is warm enough to ensure that it provides the medicine, the efficacy that is required.
He added that the 9th National Assembly, which includes the 9th House of Representatives, has succeeded in passing some of the most groundbreaking and most significant bills in the history of parliamentarianism in sub-Saharan Africa. He enumerated some of them.
The Companies and Allied Matters Act, which was passed in 2020, has revolutionized Nigeria's corporate world and fostered the ease of doing business in courts, agenda of the federal government of Nigeria. The Petroleum Industry Act, which was passed in 2021, is a watershed enactment that clearly stipulates new principles, new regulatory regimes, and new governance frameworks for the realization of the full promise of Nigeria's hydrocarbons potential. These groundbreaking legislations, among many others passed by this National Assembly, with significant contributions of 9th House of Representatives, demonstrate the fulfillment of this National Assembly of its obligation under the social contract that exists between us and Nigerians.
Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, who was the guest lecturer at the occasion, acknowledged the successes of the 9th House and called for continuity of its legislative agenda by the incoming House.
This cannot be overemphasized. Government is a continuum. It is most effective when we learn from experience, adapt lessons from history, and build on past successes. The Committee on Monitoring and Implementation of the Legislative Agenda should become, in the new Parliament, a standing committee of the House of Representatives, fully funded to serve as the in-house think tank, policy coordinator, and delivery unit of the House of Representatives. We need to adopt a new system of vetting legislative proposals for quality control and compliance with legislative agenda priorities. Amendments to the orders of the House will definitely be required for us to do this. The design of future legislative agenda needs to be more collaborative to aid implementation.
The National Assembly and indeed the legislature.
Present at the occasion was Governor Nat'l of Kaduna State, who was also the chairman of the occasion. He expressed the hope that the lecture series will address the position of both the national and state legislatures, which he described as the most misunderstood arm of government, thereby hindering development.
Because whenever there is a military coup, every other arm of government is left intact to continue. But the National Assembly and the state assemblies are usually dissolved. So we have found over time, due to years of military rule, legislative tradition has not developed as much as executive and judicial tradition. And this is why this kind of lectures are very, very important to continue to build the institutional strength and capacity of the National Assembly, as well as the state houses of assembly. There is also a lot of confusion about the role of the legislature, because many of the constituents think that once you're in the legislature, you should get them contracts. They think that everyone in government awards contracts. They do not understand that the role of the legislature is to make laws, as well as as a check on the executive and legislative and judicial excesses. So there is a need for us to have this kind of interactions from time to time to foster understanding of the role of the legislature, as well as how to make the legislature better.
Earlier in his remarks, the Director General of the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies, NILS, Professor Abubakar Suleiman, said the lecture attested to the robust nature of the legislative-executive complementarity that is brought to bear on the democratic practices in Africa, with Nigeria taking the lead.
It portends a leeway for democracy and impactful good governance to thrive. This, however, does not preclude the two arms having to occasionally diverge, even seriously on issues that have direct bearing on the lives of their constituents. Today's lecture, like the maiden one, is an avenue of legislative narration and a veritable platform connecting both the elected representative and the people beyond the confines of the two hollow chambers.
The occasion was graced by some ministers, the League of Former Clerks of the National Assembly, the Emir of Kefi, Dr. Shehu Chindoya Musa, who represented the Sultan of Sokoto, the youth, and a host of other dignitaries. Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Bosgida Mustafa, who represented President Muhammadu Buhari at the occasion, presented the plaque of the Institute to Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila as highlight of the occasion.
Our profile segment is next. Stand by for our Senator of the Week.
Senator Clifford Odia was born on the 19th of May 1960. He represents Edo Central Senatorial District under PDP. He attended St. Michael's Primary School, Usugbenu, for his first school leaving certificate, and Asian Grammar School, Uromi, for his West African School certificate. At the tertiary level, Senator Clifford Odia attended Bendel State University, now Ambrose Alice University, Ekpoma, and graduated with a degree in civil engineering. Senator Odia worked with Shell Petroleum Nigeria Limited. He later resigned to form his company, Fordia Construction Company, which is involved in construction, asphalt production, as well as quarry activities. He was also the chairman of the board of directors of Upper Benue River Basin Development Authority. He joined politics and won election to the Senate in the 2015 general elections. He was re-elected in the 2019 general elections and still serving. His legislative interests include infrastructural development, education, and agriculture. Senator Clifford Odia also holds the following positions: Fellow Nigerian Society of Engineers, Fellow Nigerian Institute of Highways and Transportation Engineers, Senior Fellow IPMA, as well as Paul Harris Fellow of the Rotary International.
With this, we end this week's edition of Inside the Senate. Join us next week for another edition, even as you follow us on our social media platforms and drop your comments and feedback for follow-up action. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.